Okay, go ahead and open up your textbook to page 4. And we're going to kind of go over the basics here. Points, lines, and planes. And then I put the key concept as undefined terms. Our geometry class is going to start with some undefined terms so we can all start someplace. And we have to start with undefined terms. Okay, and an undefined term, in geometry anyways, these words do not have a formal definition, but we have to have an agreement for what they mean. Okay, so by what I mean, a point is a location. It has neither shape nor size. So if it had shape and size, we could define it, but since we're just going to agree that a point is a location. Okay, so for example, if you look at the floor, you can see the tiles kind of form a grid, right? A lot of times we agree when two tiles cross at an X like this, we call that a point. That's a location we can all agree on, right? Usually we don't pick a point in the middle because it's hard to agree on it. Okay, in geometry, so we can agree on a point, a lot of times we will draw, and technically that's not a point. Technically that's a tiny little circle, right? But in geometry, we'll go ahead and draw a tiny little circle and call it a point. And this particular point I'm going to do like this. And if I'm going to write about it, I'm going to call this, well, there's several ways to do this. I might call this A, or I might call this point A. Just depends. Okay, a lot of times I'll just say A. Okay, a line. A line is made up of points and has no thickness or width. So a lot of times we'll see the figure like this, and we know what a line goes. It goes on and on forever, right? We learned that in algebra. Okay, it's going to have points, and usually we don't draw all the points because technically a line has infinite points on it. So I might draw 2 points on it. Okay, and when I name this, I can name this several ways. Okay, I can name this line BC. But what you'll find is a lot of times people don't like to write words. Words take too long. If you are having to deal with something that is, 2.5 pages long, you want to save time. So usually what they do is they do this. BC. And I draw a little arrow, double-ended arrow or a line on top of it. It could also be called this. Order doesn't matter because the line goes in both directions. So order doesn't matter. Both would be correct. When we grade things, they might only list this one. That doesn't mean this one's not correct. Okay, and sometimes if we have a bunch of lines and we don't want to get confused, sometimes they'll put a cursive letter, like I'll put a K here. That's how I do my cursive K. It's not very big. Is that how you do a cursive K? Yeah. Sure. Sometimes they'll do a cursive K, and when they do a cursive K, they just, call it like line cursive K. And they use cursive letters so you don't get confused with points, right? Points aren't in cursive. If I use shortcuts, I do that in cursive. Okay, a plane. A plane is a flat surface made up of points that extends infinitely in all directions. Well, this is really hard to draw. So a lot of times what they do is they just draw like a shape like this. Okay? And so a lot of times what they do is I put 3 points. A, B, C. Okay? And when they name this, they're going to name this like plane A, B, C. Now, order doesn't matter. Could it be plane BAC? Or, a lot of times I like to spell words with my letters. So maybe CAB. That's a word, right? Cab. It doesn't matter. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll put it in alphabetical order just because that makes sense to my brain. Sometimes I'll spell words because it's fun. And again, a lot of times they will put some kind of letter on it as well. And so usually what they do with this, and unfortunately sometimes it's a fancy letter, but they might just, in your book, they might just put like a little M in the corner, not put a point, and they call that plain M. Okay, I'm not super worried about that at all. Okay, so all this is in your book. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to look up and write definitions of defined terms. So we have 3 undefined terms, and probably we're going to use these terms to start defining things. So the reason why we opened up our book is not just open up our book, but it's so you can look up these defined terms, and I think most of them are going to be on page 4 and 5. I'll warn you that space is not in this, and so I will help you with space. But I think everything else is there. So go ahead and do that now. And I will try to cut this out of the actual video. And so I'll put down, so we're going to look at defined terms. So basically a defined term is terms that can be described using point, line, and plane. And you can't see the word plane, but I promise it's over there someplace. Yep. Okay. This is on 4 and 5. All right, just for time, you can still work on this, but I'm basically going to go over this. I'm not going to write everything down that I want you to write. When I have you do definitions, there are some important things that I want you to do. You don't necessarily have to copy everything. Some of the definitions in this book, sometimes we need to break it down a little more. Definitions are important in things like geometry because sometimes changing a word changes the whole definition. I like to look at a lot of geometry that we do early on, especially, is kind of like a pre-law subject where, you know, we will get into rules and stuff like that, but laws also have, if you're a lawyer, you also have to deal with definitions and laws. Of course, they're not about shapes. They'd be about either crimes or about contracts or about, depends what kind of lawyer you are. But it's the same kind of logic. And so a lot of people that are actually math majors in college or math majors in college to go to law school because of the mathematical abilities that you use in law school. So that's if that's something you're interested in, that's something to focus on. That some of the nitpicky terms of definitions are there. So coplanar are points that lie in the same line. Okay. Collinear are points that lie in the same line. Coplanar are points that lie in the same plane. Okay, so for example, and I'm going to do for example so you understand things. Here's my line, right? A and B are collinear. They're in the same line. C is collinear, still in the same line. D, not collinear. It's not on that same line. Could I draw a line between A and D? Yes. Could I get all three of these in the same line? No. Coplanar. Well, all of these points are on a plane because isn't this paper a plane? It's a flat surface, right? Okay. And so where would a non-coplanar point be? Well, maybe, is my pen above the paper? If I could draw a point right here, actually I can. Hey, there's a point. Hi. I'm not going to write a letter there because my wife might ask me why I'm drawing on myself in class. All right, she won't notice. Ow, no. Here, now I got to make a smiley face. There we go. So right here, that would be not coplanar. It's above the plane, right? Okay. Yeah, it's permanent. Intersection. Let's see what it says about intersection. Does it have an intersection? Do we find that? What did it say about intersections?
On page 5, it says
6. Okay, I had to turn the page. The intersection of figures is a set of points that the figure have in common. Okay? So that's a fancy way to say intersection is where various shapes touch. So what I want you to know is if I have two lines intersect at an intersection, that intersection is a point. Here's what I want you to think about, and this is tough to draw. So I'm going to attempt to draw it. Two planes are going to intersect at a what? A line. And we can look at that in this room. Look at where the walls meet. Okay? And I'll get up and you can't see it on camera, but look at where the walls meet. So like this wall meets this wall, right? And so that's kind of like a line, right? And they actually filled that line in with, I guess, grout, because these are bricks, right? So every place, and now you're noticing that my room isn't actually square. You have big pillars, right?
No.
Yeah, those pillars keep the roof from hitting our heads, right? Those are very important. Those are big. That's what keeps the roof up. But those are kind of like lines, right? You build this building with a bunch of lines, and then you fill it in with lines, right? Okay. This building, because I watched it being built, because I knew my classroom was going to be in here. This building looked very, very small when it's just a skeleton of beams and lines. Now that it added a bunch of rooms, it feels kind of big, right? But it's smaller than a football field, so that's That's interesting. All right, space. Space is not here. Space is kind of like point, line, plane. So space, basically what I want you to know about space is a point. We know what a point is. We know what a line is. A plane are the walls. Space is 3 dimensions, and we're going to get into that. So space is 3D. So space is multiple planes. So between the walls is space, including the walls, the ceiling, and the floor. So the main thing I want you to know on space is that's 3-dimensional. That's going to include our 3D world. We're going to mainly deal with the 2D world, which is points, lines, and planes. At the end, we'll do 3D. A line segment. A line segment is a line with ends. It ends. It stops. So this is a line. It never ends. A line segment ends. In the real life, our lines don't go on forever. Lines cost money. They have to end. So I'm going to call this AB. Okay, line segment. This is how I name a line segment. Okay, what's the difference between a line segment and let's call this, let me write down this line, I'll call this AC. Does everybody can tell the difference between a line segment and a line? What is the difference?
There's no arrow.
Okay,
One ends, one doesn't.
and we can see the difference. This is a nitpicky thing, but I will count off on a test because this communicates it goes on forever. This communicates it has endpoints. Array. I think array is basically, it just goes in one direction, right? Is that what that said? Okay, so this is what array might look like. And this is how I'm going to write this. And order matters for array. And let's see why order matters. This is the symbol for array. Why does order matter?
Because one end stops and one end goes on forever.
Right. And so if I did this, that's not this array.
Yeah.
This would be wrong because you want the endpoint with the endpoint. Okay? So again, what we are doing is language. Okay? So go ahead and get out a separate piece of paper. And I forget what the assignment is. I have it written down already. But we are going to start going over this assignment. We got tons of time. We should be able to finish it. If not, if we don't finish it, this is the first week of school, which means I'm supposed to be nicer. So I'm betting that we can maybe extend the class time if we work hard to Monday, because I really don't want you to have weekend homework. I have homework this weekend. Okay. And I have to remember what the assignment is. I think I'm going to flash it on the screen real quick. Although you won't see it on the video, but I think for you guys, if I can figure out which one this is. All right, here we go with the assignment. Maybe. All right, too much noise. Let's get done. And I'm going to help you kind of know what to do on this. Page 8, 12 through 16 even. Yeah, let's do, and then I'm going to shut this off and then we can do it. Okay, so that's, I technically can shut it off, but I made it go away. So that's the assignment. It's on your Google Classroom also. Okay, I need to shut off this recording. I'll put this back up.